Imagine a kingdom ripped apart, not by foreign invaders, but by its own people. This was England during the Wars of the Roses, a brutal, decades-long conflict that pitted family against family, cousin against cousin, all vying for control of the English throne. From 1455 to 1487, the houses of Lancaster and York, both with legitimate claims to the throne, engaged in a bloody struggle for supremacy. This wasn't just a war between armies, it was a war of propaganda, intrigue, and shifting loyalties, a conflict that would forever alter the course of English history. The conflict's name, though evocative, is a bit of a misnomer. It wasn't a formalized war with a declared beginning and end. Instead, it was a series of sporadic, often brutal engagements interspersed with periods of uneasy peace. The fighting took place across England, from the green fields of Yorkshire to the bustling streets of London, and while the nobility bore the brunt of the fighting, the conflict touched the lives of ordinary people, leaving a lasting legacy of trauma and uncertainty. To understand the Wars of the Roses, we must go back to the reign of Edward III, a powerful king who ruled England in the 14th century. Edward had several sons, and their descendants would eventually form the warring factions of the 15th century. After Edward III's death, his grandson, Richard II, ascended the throne. Richard was deposed by his cousin, Henry Bolingbroke, Duke of Lancaster. Henry crowned himself King Henry IV, establishing the House of Lancaster. However, the Lancastrian claim was not without its challenges. The powerful House of York believed they had a stronger claim to the throne. This tension set the stage for decades of conflict. Social and economic unrest in England during the 15th century. The 100 Years' War with France had drained the royal treasury. This discontent made it easier for ambitious nobles to raise armies. By the reign of Henry VI, England was ripe for internal conflict. The stage was set, and all that was needed was a spark to ignite the fires of war. That spark came in 1455 at the First Battle of St. Albans. Richard, Duke of York, clashed with forces loyal to King Henry VI, marking the beginning of the Wars of the Roses. The Battle of St. Albans was a relatively small affair, but its significance cannot be overstated. It shattered the fragile peace that had held England together and unleashed the pent-up ambitions of the Yorkist and Lancastrian factions. The early years of the conflict saw a series of victories for the Yorkists. Richard of York, a skilled military leader and ruthless politician, gradually gained the upper hand. He declared himself protector of the realm, effectively sidelining the ineffectual Henry VI. However, the tide turned in 1460 at the Battle of Wakefield, where Richard of York was killed. His son Edward now inherited the Yorkist claim and the burning desire to avenge his father's death. The Wars of the Roses were characterized by their brutality and shifting alliances. Battles were often fought hand to hand, with no quarter given or expected. Betrayal was commonplace, and even within families, loyalty was a fickle thing. Section 4. The Dance of Kings. Edward of York, a charismatic and ambitious young man, proved to be a formidable opponent for the Lancastrians. In 1461, he defeated the Lancastrian forces at the Battle of Towton, one of the largest and bloodiest battles ever fought on English soil. Edward's victory at Towton secured him the throne as Edward IV, and for a time it seemed that the Yorkists had triumphed. However, the Lancastrians were far from finished. They continued to plot and scheme, seeking to exploit any weakness in the Yorkist regime. The conflict took a dramatic turn in 1470 when Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, switched sides and joined forces with the Lancastrians. Warwick, once a staunch Yorkist supporter, had grown disillusioned with Edward IV's rule and saw an opportunity to install his own puppet king on the throne. With Warwick's support, Henry VI was briefly restored to power. However, Edward IV refused to accept defeat. He returned from exile in 1471 and defeated Warwick at the Battle of Barnet, killing the Kingmaker on the field. Section 5. The Rise of the Yorks. Edward IV's grip on power, however, was far from secure. His younger brother Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was a man of insatiable ambition and ruthlessness. Richard resented his brother's authority and craved power for himself. When Edward IV died unexpectedly in 1483, he left behind two young sons, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York. Richard of Gloucester seized his nephews, declared them illegitimate, and had himself crowned King Richard III. Richard III's reign was short and bloody. He was a capable ruler, but his ruthless methods and questionable claim to the throne made him deeply unpopular. Many believed he had murdered his nephews, the princes in the Tower, to secure his position. The disappearance of the princes in the Tower remains one of the most enduring mysteries in English history. Despite numerous investigations and theories, their fate remains unknown, adding to the dark legacy of the Wars of the Roses. Section 6. The Final Curtain. The final act of the Wars of the Roses played out in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Henry Tudor, a distant Lancastrian claimant, challenged Richard III for the throne. The Battle of Bosworth Field was a decisive victory for Henry Tudor, effectively ending the Wars of the Roses. Richard III was killed in battle, the last English king to die on the field of battle. Henry Tudor was crowned King Henry VII, uniting the warring houses of Lancaster and York by marrying Elizabeth of York, daughter of Edward IV. Thus began the Tudor dynasty, a new era in English history. The Tudor dynasty would rule England for over a century, overseeing a period of significant change and upheaval. The Wars of the Roses, though long over, continued to cast a long shadow over English politics and society. Section 7. Legacy of the Roses. The Wars of the Roses was a period of immense upheaval and bloodshed. It left an indelible mark on English society, shaping the country's political landscape and national identity for centuries to come. The conflict led to the decimation of the old nobility, paving the way for the rise of a new ruling class. It also strengthened the power of the monarchy and centralized authority in England. The Wars of the Roses also had a profound impact on English literature and culture. William Shakespeare, writing decades later, found rich dramatic material in the stories of ambition, betrayal and revenge that characterized the conflict. The Wars of the Roses serve as a reminder of the destructive power of ambition and the fragility of peace. They are a testament to the enduring human capacity for both great love and unimaginable cruelty. The conflict continues to fascinate and horrify us today, reminding us of the importance of unity, understanding, and the hard-won lessons of history.